Okay, welcome everybody to a lesson on non-finite verbs. Now, that sounds complicated, right? Non-finite verbs. So let's immediately explain what is a finite verb, what's a non-finite verb. A finite verb has a doer, okay? So in my opinion, it's 100% a verb, okay? In the sense that, how do we define a verb? Well, a verb is a word that has a doer. It's not a doing word. This is a myth. Because the word to be is a verb, and when you say I am English, you're not doing anything, but am is a verb, and is a verb, and are is a verb. And the reason why it's a verb is because it's always got a doer. I am, he is, you are, and it changes according to the doer, which is a characteristic of verbs. Okay, now. That's what a finite verb is, and I would call that a full verb, a complete verb, because it's got a doer. Non-finite verbs, you might call them verbs that are not functioning as verbs. You might call them that. Why? Well, because verbs we've defined as a word with a doer. Non-finite verbs do not have a doer. Okay, so that's why non-finite verbs are really verbs that are not functioning as verbs. And this is the complicated thing in grammar. If you look at a sentence like this, I saw the Russian writing. And if you tell a young child that verbs are doing words, why on earth would the child pick saw when writing is also very much an activity? Yeah, I agree that saw is an activity as well, but there would be nothing wrong, in my opinion, with the child saying, okay, verbs are doing words, saw is an action, writing is an action, I'm having both of those as my verbs. But what we're going to learn in this class is that only one of these two words is a proper verb, a finite verb, a verb that has a doer, and that's this one, yeah? Because it's got a doer, I, yeah? I saw. This one is not functioning as a verb, even though I completely agree that it comes from the verb to write. Of course it does, it comes from the verb to write. So it's certainly a verb, but it's a non-finite verb. It's a verb that doesn't have a doer. Yeah, it doesn't have an I am writing, he is writing. Well, you might say, well, what about the Russian? Wasn't the Russian writing? Okay, but then if we've got a finite verb, if writing were a finite verb, we would have to write the Russian is writing or the Russian was writing, and then we've got a finite verb. Then we've got a verb that is functioning as a verb with a doer. But if you don't have the Russian is writing or the Russian was writing, and you just have the Russian writing, then that writing is a non-finite verb, okay? So what am I talking about? Non-finite verbs. Well, non-finite verbs can function in three ways. They could function as nouns. Yeah, if a verb is functioning as a thing, as a noun, then it's called a gerund. And when verbs do this, they always end ing. Yeah, dancing, smoking, playing, eating, drinking. They're gerunds if they're functioning as a noun in the sentence. However, sometimes the verb functions as an adjective. And when a verb functions as an adjective, we call it a participle. A participle, okay? This is still a non-finite verb. It's a verb that's not really a verb because it doesn't have a doer, but it's functioning as an adjective. So the adjectival form of the verb we call a participle. And participles sometimes end ing, and so sometimes they look exactly the same as gerunds, which is annoying because it means that when you see a word like smoking in a sentence, you're not sure, is it a gerund or is it a participle? And it's really confusing in this sentence. Is writing a gerund or is it a participle? And the answer is it could be either in this very ambiguous sentence.